what's up guys, it's me SIHK here, and I am your mentor for EMPC. Basically, I want to show you guys everything I know about the EDM world. I just want you guys to go further and even more successful than I am in your careers. So I'm going to show you everything I've learned in the past 7 to 10 years. But yeah, let's get started. So here I have made a little presentation, not the highest quality, PowerPoint or anything, but this will cover everything that you will need to know about the EDM world. The first things, well, there's like 5 major things that you need to know: what labels are, distributors are, managers, booking agents, publishers. I feel like a lot of you guys are actually like really good producers, but don't really understand the business side of the music. First things first, we're gonna go through the proper structure of your team ideally. So we always start from the artist, which is you. Super important, because without the artist, there's nothing else. You have to keep in mind, you guys are a team, but mainly they work for you, because without you, they don't make any money. So first things first is the manager, obviously the person who manages you. And this manager is like a very important role, because he's kind of like the guy in between you and all of this other stuff that generally as an artist you don't want to deal with. And then the manager contacts the label contacts the distributor, and the distributor contacts the streaming platforms. And then, labels also contacts the publisher, distributor, publishers find you syncs, managers find you a booking agent. The booking agent talks to the bookers, who works for the festivals or the club. It's not that hard, but it can be complicated if you don't understand anything about it. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is roles of a manager, because I feel like a lot of people don't know what managers are supposed to do, and then you end up getting a manager that doesn't really do much and you're still paying him. First things first is finding you opportunities, collaborations, remixes, all that stuff. Maybe like if your manager's managing other artists. For example, my manager manages Jaden Lewis, who is an Amapiano producer. If I wanted to do a collab with him, which would never happen because I'm a hardcore DJ, but if I was supposed to collab with him, then my manager would be like, oh, cool. Yeah, you guys should collab. Or maybe your manager's friends with other managers who have other artists within your sound. Then yeah, you can, do collaborations with them. For remixes, usually if your manager is well connected, they'll find bigger artists that just release a track somewhere. They'll contact the label, or they'll contact the artist themselves or the managers of the artists, and just be like, hey, I have this cool artist that I manage right now. Can you go get him a remix for this new track that one of your artists released? That way you get that artist's fan and kind of growing yourself bigger, And then, yeah, being middleman between you and other parties. Just like as an artist, you should be focusing on writing music instead of trying to like negotiate deals and stuff. Organizing your release schedule. So generally nowadays, most artists has releases every month. So he would tell you like, oh, we have a release this month, and when we have a release the next month. But then the third release, for example, could be so close to your previous release that it doesn't work. So he has to kind of like organize that for you. Organizing your schedule. You have shows here. You got like meetings. Well, that's more like a day-to-day manager, but like for shows, and then, for example, oh yeah, you should be talking to this A&R, or, having a meeting with this label. Generally, he does that for you, but sometimes they want to meet the artist as well to make like a more personal connection. Reading over contracts. Some managers do this, but honestly, in my opinion, you should always find a lawyer to do it, just to be like super safe. Helping you create an image brand for yourself. A lot of managers sometimes don't do this, but I like the managers that do, like where they'll just randomly message me. Like my manager, he messages me a lot like, hey, Eurodance is kind of blowing up right now. Maybe you should do a track sort of in that style. And then he'll send me like references, or he should be like, yo, maybe we should do your logo this way. Maybe we should do like your content a certain way. They help you with that sometimes. Some managers don't, but the good ones generally do. Making sure that you post and make it as matching with your brand. Yeah, it's like basically whatever you're posting is just not random. like for example, if you go to like my profile, I'm very much like a meme kind of dude. Like I love comedy, I love funny things, so I try to always post within that kind of what people expect me to post. Some people are just like super dark and mysterious and they're always like doing this or something, and then the manager just like kind of makes sure your content is kind of around there. Sometimes you can tell them like, no, I want to do something different. Generally, you just have to be kind of like communicating with them with what kind of image you're trying to create for yourself. Sending your music to labels, that's super like obvious. Like they'd be communicating between you and the labels. So you just send your tracks to your manager and your manager just goes to his network of labels and then just be like, hey, cool tracks here, and then collecting your money from labels, booking agents, and publishers, because there's a lot of parties out there that's gonna be collecting your money. Labels taking your royalties, booking agents getting you gigs and taking money from there, publishing's getting you syncs, getting money from there. And if you're doing all of that, I'm pretty sure you will not have time to make music. Next thing is roles of a record label. So the roles of a record label is like not that complicated. So I myself am a record label manager, but I've only been doing this since 2021. Before that I was just an A&R, and then I was like a social media person before that. Roles of a record label: we sign your tracks, upload your tracks to distributors, making your artworks, or sometimes you can actually make your own artworks. Some artists have gone to me and they're like, hey, I want to make my own artwork. That's totally fine. You just give them, the label usually just gives you like a guideline of what you should be making. You just follow that guideline and you kind of stick to that vibe. Making your visualizers, like especially us in the label I manage, we make your visualizers, we upload it on YouTube, we give you canvases for your Spotify. Sometimes you get budget for your content. Like some artists would be like, hey, I need to make a music video. Can I have like 8,000 euros? If you are a person who's been in that label for a while and we see that you can make money for the label and that we can recoup meaning that we get money back from all your releases. Like you don't get any money until what is owed to us has been paid. Sometimes it's huge, sometimes it's small. Maybe it's a couple $100 in an advance, or it can be thousands of dollars. You never know. Scheduling your releases. Obviously, every record label has a release schedule. So your release might be April 27th, helping you promote your release. If the label has a big enough network, usually they'll do like a SoundCloud repost chain. They'll, talk to distributors, try to get you on playlists. They'll pay for like a Spotify marquee or something. Generally they do that. Some labels don't, some labels do. But yeah, they'll promote, maybe they'll get their other artists to promote your music as well. Collecting money from the distributors, because obviously the chain is the streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Music. They get the money, then they pay your distributors first. Your distributors get a cut of that. Then the distributors pay your record label. Your record label takes a cut of that, and then it goes to you. Or your manager first, he takes a cut of that, then it goes to you. If you don't have a manager, then it just goes directly to you. They help you clearing samples. Not always. I've had artists come to me asking to clear samples, and I'm just like, no, don't want to do that. Just give me a demo with like cleared samples or royalty-free samples. Sending your music as promo to other DJs. This is specifically to the EDM world, by the way. All of this is very specific to the EDM world. Sending your music to as promos to DJs is so important because you want to have all of that support from other DJs playing your music. So they generally have a big bank of emails, and then they'll just send your tracks to these emails and be like, hey, we just released this new track. You should check it out. Or if you could, support it in your radio or stuff like that. Next step is roles of a distributor. Honestly, if you're signing with labels, this is not that important. But if you are like doing things independent, this is something very important. Labels are like sort of important, but in the same time, not really important. If you really know what you're doing, you don't need a label. If you don't know what you're doing or you're too lazy to do all the other stuff, then you need a label. But distributors distribute your music to streaming platforms. Actually, some of these are examples that I used earlier in my career before I signed with labels. DistroKid, I use that a lot for uploading covers. TuneCore, you can upload your original tracks and get it on like, Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff. But yeah, those are just some examples. Sometimes they would provide you services to help you pitch your tracks to playlist. Not all of them do that, but the distributor that the label I work for currently is using does that. One of them, we have two, and the other one doesn't, and the other one kind of expects the label to do it. But sometimes they'll be like, hey, fill out this form, like give me all the plans of the track, give me all the scheduling of the social release, and they'll go to Spotify and they'll be like, we got this new track, they're spending this much on your platform, they're spending like $5,000 for Spotify Marquee, which is a promotional plan for Spotify, and then they'll hopefully get you on playlists. A lot of playlists really care if you're spending money on their platforms. This is like no joke how everything kind of works nowadays, and they really care on like, do you have tours coming up, what kind of content you're making around it, how are you going to try to make it viral on TikTok. All of those are very important. Collecting money from streaming platforms, already talked about that. Streaming platforms pay the distributors pay the label, and then the label pays you. Again, some distributors have services allowing you to upload covers. I use DistroKid. There's a bunch of more out there. Some labels also do that for you, but most labels, I think, generally just want original tracks. And then giving you statistics on how your track is doing to labels on platforms. So you yourself won't get emails from distributors, but your label should be emailing you and telling you like, hey, you got playlisted here. Your tracks are doing this. And the distributor I use, they email me and they're like, hey, this song has a very good traction or possible traction on TikTok. You should do something about it. That's generally it. Roles of a publisher. So this is something like I'm sort of familiar and unfamiliar with because my manager handles this most of the times. And honestly, if you have a manager, you should just let him handle this, not yourself, because that just makes things a lot more confusing. But basically, they collect your money from syncs. Syncs are when TV shows use your music, movies use your music, commercials use your music, and this publishers, they go to these like companies, like for example, they'll go to like National Geographic's crazy example, right? They'll be like, hey, I heard you have a tiger documentary. We got this perfect track for your background music. Do you want to use it? Yes, they want to use it. We'll let you use it for like $3,000. Cool. Then they take the money, they take their cut, they go to your manager, and you get your cut. And then they find you syncs. That's what I was talking about. YouTube rights management system. It's like when people use your music on YouTube. This is like where a lot of money is lost actually. For example, myself, I've had thousands of dollars in YouTube at one point, and I didn't know about it until like a publisher kind of came to me and they're like, hey, you have like $7,000 on YouTube right now that no one's collecting. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then people who sample your music, for example, you have a cool vocal that you did, or you have a cool like a synth line, like a melody, and then someone else uses it in their tracks, then they will find those people and they either will make them take down the music. Sometimes the label does this for you as well, or they'll just be like, okay, you can keep it up, but we're taking all the publishing from your track uploads. And this applies to I don't know if some of you guys are like Indonesian bounce jeduk producers and you guys like taking other people's tracks. Actually, this is like super annoying to me. When you take some other people's tracks and you just layer a kick on it and you upload it on Spotify or YouTube as an original, I'm sorry, but that's very illegal. And if someone reports it, most likely it'll get taken down. So be very careful with that. This next point, by the way, not all publishers do this, but sometimes they will send you vocals to work with. So they'll send you vocalists. They'll be like, hey, we got this vocalist. Here's a bunch of vocal lines that you can use. Please use it. And then you can make music with it. Just split the publishing with that artist and also royalties from the label side. And then depends on your deal. This is like a super good deal. You get flown out to places. I've never had this experience before, but you get flown out to places to work with like different artists. Like you can make a lot of money producing for other people, and they give you opportunities to produce for different artists in different genres. This is not the flying out thing. Maybe they works with, I don't know, Ariana Grande, and then they're like, hey, we have an opportunity for you to work with Ariana Grande. You want to produce something for her? That could happen as well. It all depends on your deal. Like in the end of the day, you want the best deal, right? You want all this stuff, but if you're not super big enough, then maybe you won't get this deal, or you haven't produced enough music. Roles of a booking agent. I feel like a lot of people mistaken booking agents and managers as the same thing, especially in Indonesia, while in my opinion, it should always be separate. Yeah, a booking agent finds you shows, super simple. They'll go to like promoters, blah, blah, blah. They'll be like, hey, I got this cool artist. Why don't you, book them? It fits your festival. He has this many followers, blah, 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 blah. Then you get booked to that festival or club. That goes to the next. Communicating with clubs and festivals is not as easy as just like, hey, book him, but they have to find out. This goes to the fourth point as well. I could have made this all in one point, but they go to clubs and they'll be like, when is he getting picked up from the hotel? When is he getting picked up from the airport? Do you have all the equipment that he needs? And then all that stuff. All the very complicated things to make sure that your show goes well and your show doesn't end up ruined. Negotiating prices. They also go to the bookers of the clubs and festivals, and they'll be like, I want my artist to be booked for $2,000 or $3,000, and then the booker for the club or festival will be like, yeah, $1,500, and it's just a negotiating thing. You don't want to do that yourself, because if you do that, okay, here's the thing. If you do that yourself as an artist, you end up sometimes looking kind of like just like unfriendly, because you're like, whoa, this guy's asking for a lot of money. But if you have a booking agent, they can do that for you without making yourself look bad. So they're kind of like the middleman for you. And advancing your shows. This is what I was talking about. Giving your flight info, hotel info, transport, sound check time, show time. Making sure that like, you know what time, how many hours they're playing, so that the club or the festival is not like, hey, can you play another hour extra for free? So that's kind of their job. And then this is another super important point that I feel like a lot of people here do not understand, and they allow themselves to get ripped off by people. So this is the distribution of how many percent that each of your team should be getting in general, and like kind of like in a very ideal and typical way. So let's start with the first one, your management. 15 to 20% of your gross revenue, which means everything you earn, everything from royalties, from publishing, from bookings, your manager is going to take around 15 to 20%. In my opinion, like I wrote here, anything above 20% is kind of weird. It's like a little too much. Or if they ask you to pay a fee to get into the management, they're like, hey, yeah, if you want to join our management, you have to pay us $2,000. Don't do that. But there are some cases where the percentage could be way higher. It could be 50-50 with their management if they are part of your project. Actually, like they created your whole brand and you're kind of like the face behind it. They're putting a lot of money in your brand. They're doing a lot more than just managing. Then sometimes it can go up to like 50-50, as if like you and your manager owns this brand together like a business. Keep that in mind. If your manager is just managing you and like doing what a manager should do, not really like giving you like a $10,000, $100,000 investment or something, should be like 15 to 20%, which is normal. Generally it's 20%. If you're like super big, you can even talk it down more. Booking agents, 10%. Like I've heard of other booking agents taking more than that, but honestly, I really recommend you to only find booking agents that will only take 10%. That's just like a very general percentage of a booking agent. If you're a megastar, like in the second point, like if you're as big as Tiesto, or like, super mega big like Calvin Harris, maybe you can talk it down because your fee is going to be insanely high anyway, like $1 million or something. Then, your manager can, or your booking agent can take like 5, whatever works for them. The label usually takes 50-50. In the label that I manage, we always do 50-50 deals. We just feel like it's fair. Some labels will do more. If they are trying to take more, they should be doing more. But yeah, major labels can take like a lot, man. Like I've heard major labels taking 80%, and that's quite normal in that scenario of things. Most important thing right here is do not give up your publishing percentage to the label if it's possible. That should be your manager, like negotiating all this stuff. Advances, again, means they give you money and they'll try to make the money back. It's like gambling almost. It's crazy. Publishing, it can go up to 75%. This all depends. Like I said, all depends on your deal. Like sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more. If it's more, generally they'll give you more. Like fly you around to studio sessions and all that stuff. So that's kind of everything. Oh, also, very important point. Actually, my manager told me to put this in here. But hire a lawyer for all this, please. Find a friend that understands reading contracts, because trust me, there are sometimes a lot of very, very weird things in contracts that does not give you an advantage at all. Instead, it kind of messes with you, like lifelong contracts and all that crazy stuff. So just make sure you have a lawyer to read everything. Make sure that you get what you want. Make sure you're not getting ripped off, basically. The next step is, I think a lot of you guys ask me this a lot as well, how to create a brand for yourself. First step is a logo. And this is a really weird situation right now where the Gen Z kids really like making multiple logos, and I'm totally all for it. And I think it's really cool. But generally, find a logo that you can stick with. Just make one first, because making a logo can be expensive. Find one that fits with your style. Find one that fits with your music and your scene. Wear clothes that make you stand out or make yourself stand out. This is super important, and I'm still working on that myself. I learned this from Lil Texas, actually. He wears like clothes like a cowboy, and no one really does that, and that instantly made him stand out. And now he's like one of the biggest hardcore DJs in the US. Just don't look like a kid who's at home on his computer all day. You know, you have to like kind of make yourself look good. Make sure you plan out what kind of content. That's super easy. Like I said myself, I like comedy, so I stick to comedic content. Some people have the cool guy vibe. They'll never do anything funny. Some people are like super dark, super edgy. Yeah, you just stick to that so people kind of know what kind of person you are. And the best way to do this is actually, in my opinion, to be yourself, but kind of elevate it by 100%. So if you're like a funny person in real life, be extra funny online. If you're like super dark and edgy in real life, exaggerate that even more, so it still feels true to yourself and you're not forcing yourself to become something else. But yeah, that's not that hard once you start thinking about it that way. Choose a genre and stick to it. This, my guys, my friends, this is one of the biggest mistakes I did in my career, in my opinion. So I moved around a lot. Like I've had multiple names, and where it got really messy is when I actually became SIHK, where I was known for producing for Rich Brian, Nicki, and all this hip hop stuff. And then suddenly I'm making EDM as well. And I'm making like house music. I'm making dubstep, making trap, jungle terror, hardstyle. It all got really, really messy to the point where promoters would be like, what does he even play? You know, that kind of set me back by a lot. So what I really recommend you to do is choose a genre that you really like. Like if you're a drum and bass guy, or dubstep, or trap, or house, techno, stick to that. And maybe once you're really, really big, you can expand more to other genres. But in the first couple, you know, trying to grow yourself steps, just stick to a genre and make sure you really like that genre, and you don't just make that genre because you're like, oh my god, this genre is a trend right now, which is the last step. Make a signature sound. That just means using unique synths, making like a producer tag. Like I have my producer tag that goes SIHK. And then on my side project with Tomato, under Ricky, we have a producer tag that is, damn, there's two of them. So like we always have that in our tracks. The SIHK one, sometimes I have it, sometimes I don't. It just depends on the flow of the track. But yeah, final step is be true to yourself. Don't follow what's trending, and do what you love. Because the thing is, if you listen to a track and then it blew up, right? Like hear a viral TikTok track that's trending, but the thing is, it's been made 6 months ago or a year ago before it's released. So by the time you're making it and by the time you release it, it's not really the trend anymore. So you're forever gonna be late. If you make what you love, then you're always gonna be kind of ahead of the curve. Everything's just a cycle, right? Dubstep was big, then it moved over to trap, then it moved over to at what now it's house and techno, and then I feel like it's gonna go to hard dance, and then it's probably gonna go to some sort of dubstep again. It just rotates, you know. So if you just keep doing what you want to do, eventually that rotation will go back to you. That's how I see it. Just never give up on your sound just because someone's telling you, hey, you should make this type of music because it's gonna make you bigger a lot faster or something like that. Sending your demos to labels. This is if you don't have a manager, by the way, because I have a lot of independent artists sending demos to me, and most of the times I'm just like, why did you do it this way? Send demos that matches with what the label generally releases. What I mean by that is, don't send a lo-fi hip-hop track to a house label. Don't send a house track to a hardstyle label. It's just very common knowledge. Keep that in mind. Include your social links in your emails and maybe a brief description of yourself if this is the first time you're sending a label your track. Don't be like one of those kids that's like, I'm a 14-year-old producer from Indonesia and I really appreciate, like, I'm not gonna read all that. You know what I mean? I don't care. I just need to know where you're from, what kind of music you're making, and that's about it. And then maybe some history of like, hey, I've been playlisted in this, here are my social statistics and blah blah blah, all that stuff. And that's all I care about. And the music, like the most important part is the music, right? It goes back to, does your music even fit the label? And then don't send half-written demos, especially if you have not released on that label before. If I get an email from an artist that I don't know, I've never listened to them, and they're sending me demos where it's just half made, like, sure, if it's not mixed and mastered, I'm kind of like okay with it. But when it's just like half made, it's like a drop or a break that goes to one drop. I'm like, no, this is not enough for me to judge your music, so I will not sign it. So send tracks that's already completed. If you want to really impress the label, then really send tracks that has completely been made, mixed and mastered and everything. Next step is, don't send spam-like emails to 100 different labels. So I've had demo emails where it's like, hey, I have this demo, blah, blah, blah. And then I press the CC thing and there's like 100 different, and I'm like, oh, cool. I'm not going to sign this. You sent it to other, 100 different labels. I want this kind of exclusive, our relationship. Make sure your socials look good because most labels care about this. It's super important. If you're like an artist and then your socials have nothing to do with your music, pictures of you playing basketball, pictures of you and your family, pictures of your kids. We're kind of like, is this a personal profile or are you an artist? You know what I mean? Have your personal profile as like a personal profile. Have your artist profile as your artist profile. Don't send demos with uncleared samples. I'm sometimes okay with this. Most places are not. Don't sample Tupac, put in your music, and then send a demo without like telling us, because that's just really annoying, especially once we upload it and then we found out that it has an uncleared sample. Funny story, I did this on my first EP on Barong. So I'm actually telling you my mistakes. Don't do this. Don't send stolen tracks or copies that are so similar to a reference. Like, I've had people send me tracks of other people's tracks and I just Shazam it, found it. Copies. Have people send tracks that sounds one-to-one with the stuff we release, and like it just sounds the same. Okay, just don't do it. It's stealing. This is the final thing I want to talk about, and this is just roles of you as the artist, because everything starts with you and then it goes everywhere else, right? Without you, there's nothing. So you just have to create music. Try to create as much music as possible. Make music, one demo a week, so then you have a gigantic bank of demos for your manager to send out. Make a lot of edits, a lot of remixes, upload it to your SoundCloud, upload it to TikTok, do all that. Make, just create, man. You're the creator. You are the god of your project. Play shows, obviously that's something you have to do. Unless you don't want to play shows, man. Some people just don't want to play shows. But generally, if you want to make money, you play shows. Just, go to the venue on time. Make sure you don't miss your flights. Be nice to everyone that you meet at the shows. Be very humble. And you should have a good career. Create content. Like I said, make videos on Instagram Reels, TikToks, vlogs, project showcase on YouTube, tutorials, all that stuff is really gonna help you. Make friends in your scene. Don't be shy to go on Discord, go to shows, talk to other artists, give your music to other artists, because I feel like once you have that personal connection with other artists in your scene, you're more entangled into the space. You can collab easier with these people. Other artists have connections, and you can give your connections. They can give your connections. Everything is just a web of helping out. At least that's how I like to do it. Create a community surrounding your music and sound. Gather people who likes your music. Talk to them. Be nice to them. Invite them to your shows. Do giveaways. Just make sure your fans or your followers or your friends feel involved in your project as much as you are. And then last thing is just have fun. Like when you're in this industry, you're going to be having a lot of fun. You're doing what you love. You're doing what most people dream of. And, take steps, the small steps. Don't take them for granted. Make sure you enjoy everything you do. And hopefully you get big. And if you don't, just keep trying. Everyone has their time. And if you don't get, mega star this year, maybe it's next year. Maybe it's the year after. But just never stop having fun. Never get jaded about the music industry. It can be really hard, and just keep going, never give up. And that is it, guys. My name is SIHK. I feel like everything I've told you here is everything I've learned in the past year. I really hope you can use it to grow yourself, and hopefully in a couple years I'll see you way bigger than I am, and I'll be like, that kid is super cool. I wish I was him. Anyway, thank you, EMPC. Thank you, Experience, for giving me this opportunity to educate people. I really appreciate it. And see you next time. If you have any questions, my Instagram DMs are always open. Even if this program's over, don't be shy to ask me anything. Gear or any tips. I'm always there for you guys. I just want to make sure that everyone understands how to do all of this stuff. And we can grow the electronic music scene together, and hopefully have a much, much cooler and better ecosystem. Hey, what's up, guys? It's me, SIHK, and welcome to EMPC Q&A session of the night, if you just watched my video and stuff. All right, let's go. All right, question number 1 is basically asking me, how do I feel about perkembangan EDM scene di Indonesia? Dan gimana kayak produser-produser lokal itu bisa berinovasi, berkembang di Indonesia dan in the same time di luar negeri. Perkembangan EDM scene di Indonesia itu lumayan menarik, gara-gara yang gue inget itu pas gue baru balik dari US ke Indo tahun 2013-2014, gue nggak inget. Scene lokal dan lagu-lagu lokal itu sangat direndahkan. For example, banyak klub-klub dulu itu yang bilang nggak boleh mainin lagu Indonesia. Sekarang masih ada beberapa, cuman udah lebih dikit lah. Jadi scene kita itu berkembang lumayan cepat, apalagi sejak pandemi dan TikTok. TikTok itu ngebantu banget. Sekarang malah lagu dan genre yang paling gede di Indonesia itu sekarang Indonesian bounce, in my opinion. Yang mainstreamnya banget, Indonesian bounce, dan itu obviously dari Indonesia. How to make us go outside of Indonesia? Gue nggak suka dengan kata-kata go internasional, gara-gara semua itu sekarang online dan honestly semua itu udah internasional. You have to innovate your sound. For example, Indonesian bounce. Right now it's in the early stages of the second round, gara-gara this sound itu sebenarnya udah ada di Indo pas 2010-an, Mahesa Utara, Angger Dimas, that type of sound. But the people now who have the market needs to upgrade their sound, keep innovating their sound, because if you keep doing the same thing, people will actually get bored. While other scenes, for example, the house scene, the dubstep scene, the hardstyle, hardcore drum and bass. Every 3 to 6 months, you'll hear something new. That's something that you need to keep your eye out for and keep innovating your sound. Experiment a little bit, and who knows, maybe our music can get recognized by big artists outside, which I feel like it's already happening. Question number 2. Ini dari Rembrandt Trevan. Bagaimana skena musik komunitas musik Indonesia ke depan di Indonesia menurut Bang Ricky? Oke. Skena musik Indonesia, in my opinion, undergroundnya sangat jalan. We have DJs. Actually, I just met one on Is the Ship Singapore recently. His name is SIHK. I did not know about him before, but apparently he does stuff with Mixmag Asia, which is a big publishing company, a big news company. I think they're from the UK. And he's touring around Asia, and he'll be touring around Europe from what I heard. We have Blue Claire, we have Papa Khan, there's Otoro, there's a lot of DJs that's getting big outside, and that kind of drives the underground scene in Indonesia a little bit more. But for the mainstream stuff, it's very unpredictable. You never know. This year Indonesian bounce is big. Mandarin style, hard style is big right now. You'll never know in 2 months. It might be drum and bass, it might be lo-fi hip hop, it might be a recording of me screaming in a mic for 3 minutes. So it's unpredictable. Question number 3. Menurut lu Bang, genre apa cocok untuk musik EDM di Indo? Actually, this is a very interesting question. Menurut gua, genre yang masuk dengan Indonesia itu genre EDM yang benar-benar familiar dengan sound-sound Indonesia. Jadi kayak mengarah ke koplo, dangdut, fangkot, breakbeats Indonesia. Itu kayaknya orang-orang bisa terima lebih gampang. Cuman ya, it's up to you man. Market lu itu mau kemana? Lu mau market ke sana apa lu mau ke underground? Kalau underground sih semua jalan ya. Lu mau nyari anak-anak dubstep juga ada, anak-anak house juga ada. So yeah, it's up to you. It's in the end of the day, I think the main line is lu marketnya mau kemana. Question number 4. So far menurut Bang Sik, bagaimana perkembangan genre EDM di Indonesia sekarang dan bagaimana tanggapan Sik about Indonesian bounce yang lagi ramai di industri musik Indonesia? Perkembangan EDM di Indonesia is really good. More and more of our artists are getting big and more recognized around in different countries. I mean, dari dulu memang udah kayak gitu, cuman mungkin sekarang with the development of the internet lebih kelihatan aja. Indonesian bounce, I like it. Like I said many times in online, semua musik itu ada tempat dan waktu for that type of music. For example, if I go to a club, and if I go to a club yang udah terkenalnya mainnya house music, pasti gue datang ke sana untuk dengerin house music. Cuman ada beberapa club yang spesifiknya itu memang crowdnya suka Indonesian bounce, jadi gue kesana untuk dengerin Indonesian bounce. I like their sound, I like what they're doing, they're creating their own scene. Really reminds me of what was happening with a lot of other music genre scenes like dubstep and stuff di Indo dulu, but it got a lot bigger. I think, again, the only thing I wish to see from them in the future, maybe this upcoming year, is more improved or more interesting sound design, more interesting, like compositions, more interesting ideas. Right now, everything sounds kind of samey, but I mean, all genres sound like that in the beginning, right? All old genres sound the same to a certain point until everyone decides to experiment with their sound and make it a lot more interesting. Question number 5. Untuk bisa terjun langsung ke industri musik, harusnya kita sebagai produser mengikuti tren genre supaya ramai pada ego atau tetap bermindset bom waktu. Okay, basically this guy is asking, kalau mau terjun ke industri musik kita harus ikutin mainstream atau kita ikutin yang kita mau aja. My tip
ke semua orang, apalagi younger producers itu, just be yourself, do the music you want to do, never do something because people are telling you, oh ini yang gede bro, ini yang gede, lu harus bikin ginian. Don't listen to them, do what you want. If you're true to yourself, you'll find your own fans. If you're just following trends, bahayanya itu ngikutin tren itu. Lagu-lagu yang keluar yang trending, biasanya itu udah dibikin 6 bulan, bisa setahun yang lalu, bisa 2 tahun yang lalu. So by the time yang lagu itu udah keluar, the producers that's making that sound is probably already upgrading their sound. So when you're doing it, you're too late. So my tip is just keep doing you, release as much music, not as possible, but strategically release your music. Once a month is good, and hope for the best. Who knows what will happen, right? Next question. Apakah gue wajib untuk mengikuti perkembangan musik EDM di Indo walaupun sebenarnya gue nggak terlalu ngikutin to answer your question is, I never personally ikutin perkembangan musik EDM di Indonesia. Gue ikutin ya what my friends are doing. Lu nggak usah ikutin sih, tergantung lu mau nyari marketnya di mana. Lu mau nyari market di luar apa nyari market di Indonesia? There's always 2 options, and even di luar pun setiap negara itu marketnya beda-beda. Kayak di UK pasti mereka lebih suka sekarang UK garage, drum and bass. Di Korea ada their own genre called Korean bounce. Di Malaysia right now I heard they're still into big room, a lot of hard style. In Netherlands, hard style, big room, not really, techno, a lot of techno, house music, all that stuff. So yeah, it depends where you want to be, man. Next question. Gimana cara grow karir di industri musik EDM jika kita tinggal di kota kecil? The best way to grow your career di industri musik EDM jika Anda tinggal di kota kecil itu untuk aktif online di Twitter, di Discord, di Instagram, because that's where people find your music. A good example of this is Papa Khan. Dia dari Palangkaraya. I don't know how much smaller of a place you want to be from, but he blew up. Marshmello noticed him, and it only took 1 tweet. So keep that in mind. Next part is personal branding in this industry. Question number 1. Bagaimana menemukan peluang dan menciptakan jaringan dalam industri musik? Peluang di industri musik itu sebenarnya banyak kan. Kayak a lot of people think you have to be a musician, you have to be an artist. Actually, there's a lot of different aspects to the music industry. Lo bisa jadi label manager, lo bisa jadi manager artis, lo bisa jadi publisher, lo bisa jadi bikin record label, lo bisa ghost producing, lo bisa producing buat commercials, or be a DJ, producer, artist, guitarist, session player, banyak. Jadi pilih aja what you wanna do. Biasanya kalau lu jadi DJ, especially we're talking about electronic music, if you're a DJ producer, lu bisa juga ghost producing for people. That's good money sometimes. Untuk nyari jaringan dalam musik industri, you can do everything online. Or the best for me is gue ke shows, kenalan sama orang, and then you just find connections from there. Real life connections is always more important than online connections. Some people can survive off online connections, but I feel like when you have a real life connection, you become more of a friend instead of just someone you know on a screen. Okay, next question. Halo kak, mau nanya dong, gimana cara kita menunjukkan karakter kita atau ciri khas kita supaya bisa diterima oleh audiens ketika pertama kali terjun ke industri? Ciri khas itu all taste. So if you listen to my music, a lot of them sounds the same, and that's my style, and that's just the music based on the music I like to listen to. Jadi kalau ciri khas itu is all up to you. Maybe all your songs have suara korek. Who knows? Maybe all your songs have suara bebek. That's your style. Kalau diterima dengan audience itu kita ngomongin kayak 17 miliar orang di dunia ini kan. I think that's how many people there is. 17 billion people. Yeah, I don't know, somewhere around there. Out of those 17 billion people, 7 billion people, I don't know how many people there is in this world, but there will be an audience for you. Even if it's just 100 people that's listening to your music. But remember, lu coba ambil 100 orang, lu masukin satu kamar, itu seramai apa? So always be thankful to the people who listens to your music. Next question. Untuk bedroom producer yang jarang nongkrong tapi relasi cukup baik, apakah konsisten keluarin musik aja sudah cukup? Atau apalagi yang harus dilakukan untuk branding diri kita yang kita kepada people out there, especially Indonesian music industry? For a bedroom producer yang punya connections bagus, this reminds me so much of my roommate Tomato. But ngerilis lagu konsisten itu penting, cuman kalau cuman ngerilis lagu tanpa branding diri sendiri, mungkin it won't go anywhere. So in my opinion is, yeah, be a bedroom producer is fine, but try to talk to people, try to make sure you're unique, try to make sure your music's getting heard. Go on, play like websites like, what is it called, Spot on Track or something like that. Get your songs on playlist, email playlists on Spotify, tell them, hey, can you add my music? Ask people to play your music out, send your music to DJs. You never know what happens. Everything is luck, everything is just perfect timing. Next question. Saya sering sekali melihat sekarang ini banyak musisi independen, terutama elektronik musik, dan dengan ciri khas yang begitu signature di antara mereka tersebut. Tentunya mereka tidak terkait dengan label. Lalu bagaimana cara membangun percaya diri untuk buat personal branding? Saya suka bingung dan mulai untuk mencari wadah di mana tempat untuk memulainya. Terima kasih. Personal branding should all be, in my opinion, it's like an exaggeration of your real self. Some people can go completely the opposite direction, that's fine, but I personally think the easiest way is to brand yourself like how you are right now, but you exaggerate it like 100 times. So I like to make jokes. So online I make my jokes 100 times more crazier. That's just the easiest way for me. Be true to yourself. Or you can go the other direction and you can be super cool, super mysterious. It's up to you. That's just how it is. Make sure your logo is cool. Make sure everything that you make musically sounds the same-ish. And don't suddenly be a drum and bass producer the next day you're making not dubstep's close. Don't be a drum and bass producer and suddenly the next day you're making techno. Okay, like that confuses people. Seberapa penting sih record label untuk ngejaman sekarang mengingat kita sendiri bisa rilis lagu sendiri dan promosi lagu sendiri. Seberapa penting record label itu sebenarnya 50-50, penting nggak penting. Pentingnya itu kalau, for example, labelnya can give you something more. They can give you an advance money, they can pay for your music video, they can find you shows. For example, like Barong Family, we always find the artists some shows on our label nights, and we're just more like a collective, so everyone's friends with each other, there's good connections. But honestly, zaman sekarang lu kalau mau bikin your track viral, all you need is good consistency on social media, some good content, funny content, interesting content, and that's good. That's all you need. Yeah, good luck with that. Step apa yang harus pertama lakukan dan ya harus DM untuk bisa sign label luar? Bangsik udah jadi oke, soal jadi inspirasi. Step apa yang harus dilakukan untuk ke label luar? Step number 1 is obviously to make music. Step number 2 is to email the labels. Step number 3 is go to events and hopefully meet the people who runs that label. And that's how I got into Barong Family actually. But a lot of my friends just email the labels, that's enough. Make sure your music makes sense for that label. Like me as a label A&R and label manager, when people send me demos that make 0 sense to Barong Family, they're like, oh, here's a demo, and then the demo is like a hip-hop track, and I'm like, what makes you think we would sign this? So don't do that because it makes you look bad and makes you look like you just spam emailed a bunch of labels, and we don't like that. Halo Kasik, mau nanya gimana caranya bisa melangkan how to win the heart of the client and label dengan menuruti apa mereka mau tapi tetap bisa masukin persepsi our own style, whatever. Yeah, so how do you win the client's heart, or how do you win the client? Winning client, kalau lu kerja dengan klien kayak lu kerja dengan brand dan mereka suruh lu bikin lagu buat commercialnya mereka, I think the way you win is just follow what they want, of course with your skills as well, but in the end of the day they're paying you, they are the people who owns you for that project, so just follow what they want. Kalau buat label, make your music that you like honestly and then just send to the labels that make sense. Itu paling gampang sih. And if it's cool, and if we think it fits, you know, sometimes we sign the tracks. Jadi sini banyak yang nanya tentang my history ya, kayak how did I get into this, how did I get into that? Let's get into the questions. Question number 1. What was your first label? How did you get it? How did you get your music released by that label? My first label I signed my track to was this label that I will not disclose what the name is, because honestly it was a scam. I was 17 years old and I had a track out under a different name and I signed it to this label and they emailed back, oh yeah, kita mau sign track lu, keren banget bro. And I'm like, whoa, cool. And then mereka bilang kayak, oh yeah, cuman masteringnya boleh lewat kita gak? Even though my mastering in my opinion was already good enough and their mastering was actually worse. They made me pay $200 yang gue dulu kira itu normal. Apparently it's not. So I got scammed basically. They released my track but I got scammed. And yeah, so don't do that. Don't get scammed by these small labels that's just out to get your money. Question number 2. Gimana cara biar bisa gampang linking with artists or even collab when you start your music career? Paling gampang itu go online, make some friends online, post your music, share your music, and then just ask collab, man. DM them, and just talk to them, be friends with them. Friends always collab with each other. Kalau untuk collab sama artis yang lebih gede mungkin lebih susah. Cuman maybe aim for the people who are kind of on your level, or like a little bit higher, or even lower than your level. But don't aim for like, oh, I just started, I want to collab with like DJ Snake. It's gonna be super hard. Okay, third question. Did you change your musical style when joining a certain label? Yes, I did change my musical style. I actually made hip hop for Brian, R&B for Nicki, 88 Rising, but that wasn't actually my music style, but I was just helping Brian out make that beat, so I kind of changed my style a little bit. When I got into Barong, I changed my style again to fit kind of the old Barong style, which is a lot of jungle terror. But yeah, like I always liked the very, very hard music, especially because I came from heavy metal. And then now I just do what I want, and I make sure I send my tracks to labels that make sense with my style. Okay, next question. Hi yo, sick. How do you get to perform at big festivals like Ultra Music Festival or Tomorrowland? Honestly, the only reasons I'm playing those festivals is because I am part of Barong Family, and Barong Family has stages at those festivals. I am going to be playing a festival. I don't know if by this time this information's out yet, but I'm playing a festival. The first time I'm playing a big festival without Barong Family, and how I got that was just through getting the right connections, talking to the right people. So it's a lot of talking to the right people. If you have a good booking agent, they can probably get you the slot there. Or yeah, I don't know, man. Banyak cara-cara ordal in my opinion. So yeah. Okay, next question. Sick, what's up with Base God? Apa ceritanya balik track yang MV-nya Power Rangers Barong Family? So Base God itu lagu yang gue bikin sama Julian Sebulba awalnya di akhir 2019 di Thailand. Kita lagi ada Barong Family studio session, and then Yellow Claw, I think it was Nils, came into the room. Dia langsung kayak, wow, this track is dope. Gue boleh kerjain lagu ini sama kalian gak? Terus bikin collab with Barong Family. And then we made that, perlu vocals. Before vocalsnya itu orang lain, and then tiba-tiba kayak vocalsnya are like, oh yeah, Ramen Girl, cool. Ini kayak collabnya jadi rame banget. Ada Julian, gua, Yellow Claw, 2 orang, Ramen Girl, and I think Jim was just like, oh let's make something Power Rangers. Harusnya syutingnya itu di Tokyo, tahu-tahu pandemic happened early 2020, and then we ended up shooting parts of it in the Netherlands and parts of it in Jakarta. And that's the story of Base God. Next question, is there any good local forum collective that is friendly for fellow producers? A good local forum would be EGP, which is made by Eka Gustiwana, run by this guy named Tomato. It's a really cool community. Every Thursday they have demo drops, you share music, you talk about music, you produce together in their Discord channel. So go check that out. You can DM me if you're interested. I'll give you a link to it. Or you can DM Tomato as well, or maybe Eka. Next question. Apa favorite VST hardware ketika bikin lagu? My favorite VST untuk bikin lagu itu Thrash 2, Isotope. And then there is a company called Kilohertz, and they have a distortion plugin. I like that. And I also like Rave Generator, OTT, Vital, and Redominator. That's basically all I use nowadays. Next question. Hello, Mr. Stick. I asked something with your music growing up and succeed in the music industry like now. What is my motivation? Well, number one, I always like music. Gue selalu suka musik. Gue dulu di band metal pas gue masih SMP. Pas itu gue producing gara-gara gue mau kayak, how do I make music without other people? It just makes it easier for me. And then my motivation is just so I don't have to work a day job that's boring and have to work in an office. I'm okay with not being super rich or like a mega star, as long as I can sustain my life and just have fun, live a good life. You know, here for a good time, not a long time. That's my motivation to you. Okay guys, ini masuk ke part curhat dengan bangsik or curhat dengan om. Question number 1 is, halo Kak, saya mau nanya nih, in my first year DJ aku ngerasa tidak cocok dengan lingkungan sekarang, but I gain a lot of good network from it. Is it okay? How should I go further in my career? Kalau gue sih orangnya lumayan kayak I don't care, you know. So gue kalau ngerasa gue nggak masuk dengan lingkungan orang, ya gue nggak usah ikut-ikutan aja. Kayak I'm like whatever. I don't want to hang out with them because they're not my vibe. They don't get me. But you said you gain a lot of good network. That's good for you. But what I learned is when people are just not your vibe, those networks are generally very useless, and you're not gonna use them anyway. Find people that you like hanging out with. Find the collectives, the festival running people, the booking agents, the labels that's in what you love, and those are gonna help you a lot more than just people that you know here and there. Because yeah. That's how I feel. Saya datang dari pelosokan negeri dan bertanya kalau suhu. Oh, this is talking about jedak-jeduk, kampungan. They want to make it like, okay. Basically, gue understand your idea that you think jedak-jeduk is kampungan. But the thing is, you always have to remember the best music does not come from the elite rich people. It's always come from, you know, the people who don't have that much money. The people who with a lot of drive and creativity to create something. Hip hop didn't come from rich people. Like house music didn't come from rich people. Like all music that's cool right now all came from people who struggled in life. So kampungan is not, gue gak suka banget kata-kata kampungan, because in my opinion jedak-jeduk Indonesian bounce is really cool. So honestly, kalau lu suka jedak-jeduk, lu suka Indonesian bounce, keep making it. That's your sound. If people are saying it's kampungan, then tell them to just go away, because honestly they're just terlalu closed-minded. This one's a long one. Pengen rasanya rilis album bla 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 dengan musik internasional, pertama masih bingung dengan sistem musik industri, bukannya bla bla bla. Saya membuat lagu sejak umur 15 tahun tapi belum rilis satu. Okay. So yeah, I understand how you feel. I made music when I was 14 or 13, I forgot. And then now I'm 28 years old. Gua pun juga belum ngerilis album, so it's fine that you haven't released album yet. Cuman it seems like you haven't released any music at all. So my opinion is just make something that you feel like it's good enough already for people to listen to, and just release it on yourself. You don't really need a label for your first couple releases. Go on websites that's distribution like DistroKid, TuneCore, there's a lot of different types. Just release it with them, see what happens, promote your music, share your music, keep making music, release it every month, and just keep going with it. And who knows, you might be the next Swedish House Mafia. Who knows, man? Maybe I'll be begging you for a collab in the future. Anyway, that's all the questions we have so far. It was really interesting. A lot of pessimism from you guys. I just want you guys to be more optimistic about your music. And who knows? I'll see you around. If you ever see me, say hi. And I'll see you next time. If you have any questions, honestly, my DMs are open. You can always just message me. Sometimes I reply, sometimes I don't. But if it's a really important question, I always reply. And yeah, thank you guys. Thank you EMPC, and see you around.